Okay, so the title of this talk is Product Recommendation to a Billion Users in E-commerce. And this is very briefly what the agenda of this talk is about. I'll introduce myself, although Sharath has already done it, so that's already done. I'll share what the Meesho's journey has been so far, and give a brief introduction about what does doing recommendations mean, so that all of us are on the same page and can follow rest of the talk. And then I'll talk about what kind of recommendations are made in e-commerce, and then we'll specifically come to the product recommendations problem in e-commerce for billions of users. In the end, I'll summarize with some concluding remarks, and then at the end also we can take up your questions and answers. Yeah, so very briefly, like apart from things that you already know, I have worked in data science and research teams at Airtel X Labs, Swiggy, and 247.ai. And if you want to hit me up and connect over LinkedIn, you can see my username at the end. So feel free to connect later after the session if you find something interesting or want to know more about what Meesho is doing in terms of data science in general. So you feel free to reach out to me. So now let me share very briefly what Meesho's incredible journey into the e-commerce space has been like. And in order to understand this journey, you have to understand a little bit about what this landscape of e-commerce looks like in India. And this graphic summarizes that pretty nicely. So in the last decade, basically 2010 to 2020, the online penetration for organized retail was about 28%, and this market was valued at about $29 billion, and largely led by e-commerce platforms like Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra, who did an excellent job of bringing e-commerce to India. But one of the things that was distinctive about this was that this was focused largely on tier 1 cities. At the same time, in the same decade, if you look at online penetration by unorganized retail, it was hardly 1%, with market valued under $1 billion. And this was largely led by companies like Meesho. Meesho was the major player here, is the major player here. And this was possible because telecom companies like Jio, they brought internet accessibility to tier 2, tier 3 cities, villages, etc. Now, if you look at the next 5 years, it's really interesting now. So online penetration for organized retail is expected to grow to 34%, with market size valued at about $100 billion. And at the same time, for unorganized retail, the online penetration is expected to grow to 10%, with market valued at about $100 billion. This is the opportunity that Meesho has identified. They want to create value for people here who belong to tier 2, tier 3 cities, villages, small towns, which have largely not been the focus for large retailers. And this is the area that we want to serve customers and bring a lot of people who are buying things for the first time online. We want it to happen through Meesho. That is the kind of experience we want to provide, and that's the kind of opportunity that we have realized. And here, when I say unorganized retail, what I really mean is the small vendors, small businesses, which are present in these small cities. We want to bring all of them online, and at the same time, in these regions, we want people to be also able to transact online for e-commerce related necessities. And if you understand the opportunity which is there, and that we have identified, Meesho's core vision and mission sort of are aligned towards that. So our vision is that we want to enable 100 million small businesses to succeed online. These are again like businesses coming from small cities and towns. And our mission is to democratize internet commerce for everyone. Let me show you what has happened in the Meesho's journey over the course of this period, and how have people for which we are doing all of this have responded. So this graphic on the left, what it shows you is that from 2019 to 2021, Meesho has grown 100 times in terms of the numbers of orders we are receiving. And even during the COVID phase, which are mentioned here, you see that we were creating a lot of value for our customers. They were able to transact online when they were not able to go for shopping. And this is pretty incredible. This is sort of a validation which is showing us that the users are recognizing that a player like Meesho is bringing this e-commerce to them in smaller towns and cities, which was not largely served by other large retailers, and hence like this is bringing this kind of growth for us. And if you check on Google Play Store, you'll find that Meesho is one of the most downloaded apps in the country for many months now. I'm pretty sure like even today, if you open Google Play Store and look for the top apps in India, Meesho will be in the top 10, if not the top. So this is sort of a market validation that we are also getting, that people are recognizing what we are doing and responding to it in a very, very positive manner. And hence, this gives us a lot more excitement in order to build things and grow in this space and serve customers better. Now that I've shared this incredible journey of Meesho that has happened in last couple of years, I want to take you to what it takes in order to give users the kind of experiences they want in from the perspective of recommendations. And before that, I'll explain briefly what do we mean by recommendations, ranking and recommendations, so that all of us understand what is it that we are talking about. So here I'm going to take an example of an app which most of you have on your phones, and you can even check this and be able to relate to it. So if you open Google Play Store on your Android phone, so these are screenshots for my account. So when I open my account, what you see is that there is a tab that I'm on, which is Games tab, and there are a number of different widgets and items that are being displayed to me. And let's say I go to search bar and search for Meesho, I see that there are different number of suggestions that are coming on the app. And if I click on the first suggestion, what I see is that I'm getting Meesho as a result. And for me, it shows as open, but if you do it and Meesho is not installed, it probably asks you to install, which I'll highly recommend to do. But what you see here is that along with the search result, in the bottom, there are things like related to a search, etc. And there are a lot of other items which are coming into play there. And if I scroll down this page in of the search results, at the end I also get related search. So there is a lot going on here, which you might not have really thought about, like how these things are really happening, why I'm seeing these kinds of things I'm seeing. Let me go a little further. And now instead of gaming tab, I'm going into the movies tab, and let's deep down a little bit here. So if I go into movies tab, I see different sections there, and within each sections now I have different kind of items which are there. I see different tabs here as well, right? So in second screenshot, and you see a tab for top selling. Then third is about new releases. Fourth is about different kind of genres. And if I click on, let's say, animation genre, again I see two tiles with different kind of items which are present there. And then in the final tab, if I go to studios, again, I see a bunch of items which are present there. Now, just in these few screenshots on an app which we all have on our phones, a lot of AI and machine learning is happening. So my question to you is, can you identify all the different types of recommendations and ranking problems which you think are being solved here? Just take like I'll just give 15 seconds, and then I'll go to next slide and I'll show you what are the possibilities here. So just think about it for a moment.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Can you once again repeat the question? Couldn't hear you again.
Yeah, so looking at these different screenshots, what I want you to think about is what are the different kind of ranking and recommendation problems which are being solved in this app which all of us have, and we use it but not really think about what goes behind these apps. So what are the recommendation problems you think are being solved is what I want to briefly think about. Yeah, so maybe I'll just proceed. Hopefully you have got a few ideas on what might be happening. So here I've listed down some of them. They are not all possibilities, but you see a lot of things. So landing page, by landing page, I meant that when I opened the app, um, automatically opened on the games tab for me. But this is again personalized for different users. If you open, you'll probably get a different tab. Right, so there is landing page personalization which is happening. You would have seen there is a For You tab in these screens, right? And in For You tab, for me, these recommendations are going to be different. For you, the recommendations and the tiles that I'm seeing, that you are seeing, are going to be different. There are tile recommendations. So what I mean by tile recommendations is that tile item recommendations is that there are these different sections which you can scroll from right to left, right? So for example, let me go back, and in recommended For You, on the left, you see there are different items and you can scroll through them. So these are tiles, and within tiles there are different kind of items which are getting recommended, and you see like there are different kinds of tiles on the pages. You have ad suggested For You. So let me show you where that is. So if you go and if you look on the extremely left, there is ads suggested For You, ads in small caps, but again these suggestions are relevant, probably relevant to the kind of things that you use App Store for. Then we have search results. We saw earlier, right, that I was searching for Meesho and I was getting a number of different results. There are ads related to search. So if you remember, when I typed Meesho and clicked on the search results, you see there is ads related to the search that I've done. So similarly, there are a lot of other possibilities, like you might also like. So based on what you have searched, it might suggest you the other things that you might like. There are similar apps. So if you are searching for a shopping app, it might show you different kinds of other shopping apps. There are top selling products or apps which it shows new releases, genres, popular in genre, new in studio tile item ranking. So these are the things that are probably visible on the app. You can see them, you can understand them, but there are a lot of possibilities which are not really visible. For example, they might be personalizing thumbnails for you. So based on, let's say, if you like action movies, it's possible that for a movie genre, the thumbnail that you see is related to action. And if I like genre kind, drama kind of genre, for the same movie, the thumbnail that I see is sort of more aligned towards the drama genre. Section titles could be different for you, and by section titles I mean the same thing, that what are the title given to the tiles which get created. Color of the app and different styles within it could be different for you and me. Widgets can themselves be different, and what do I mean by that is those different tiles that you're seeing, they are not probably same for all of us. There can be cases where these tiles are completely different for you and me. Icon designs could be different. There could be personalization based on the language that you prefer, right? So just on this app which we have, and we use it very frequently without thinking, all of these hundreds of things are going on behind the scenes. And these are the kind of different, each of these problems could be very different compared to the other in terms of how it's solved. So this gives you a brief overview of sort of what are the ranking and recommendations problems that you sort of get exposed to every day without really thinking about it. Now, it seems like ranking and recommendations is doing a lot of different things here in these examples. And you might wonder, like, is there a common concept which underpins all of these types of recommendations? And this diagram or schematic sort of shows you what that common concept might look like. So I have a recommendation system. For now, let's assume that this some sort of black box. I have a number of items, and these items could be millions, because in App Store, if you go, the number of items, the number of apps could be of order of millions. Now I have a user, and user could bring in some context because they have a certain history, they have a certain preference. And there is another context, which is where this is happening. For example, is it search? Is it the For You page of that app? Or is it something else? Now, all of these inputs, along with, like, there could be many other inputs, but primarily if these are the three inputs, then they'll go to the recommendation system, and considering different features that it understands about each of these different aspects, the recommendation system will try to rank the items in a manner which is sort of from most relevant to least relevant. So the darker shade here means the most relevant item for you, and the lighter shade means the less relevant. So it will sort these items and present it to you. Right. So now how does this really happen? Mathematically, what you're trying to do essentially is learn some kind of relevance function with respect to an action, which is defined by A here, given an item, a user, and some context. And this is basically a function of item, user, context for that specific action that we are interested in. So I'll come to what each of these things could mean, like what could an action mean, what could an item mean, what is a user, what is the context, and what kind of relevance functions could be there. I'll come to that a little bit later, but this is sort of a very high level, a common underlying theme of all the different kind of recommendations that we were seeing working in the apps Google Play Store.
Abhay Shukla,
Sure.
Yeah. So how is it anyway related to the PageRank algorithm which the Google uses?
Yeah, so PageRank is again an algorithm which is helpful in doing retrieval for search, and there could be different methods of doing that retrieval. So PageRank could very well be one of the algorithms which can be used for recommending items, but it is one of the many algorithms which are out there.
Okay. Thank you.
Now, how do we actually learn the relevance function that we were seeing here? Like, how do I find out what rank or what score an item should get given the context of user, an item, and the context of the real estate that I'm talking about? These are at a very high level the four most popular techniques which are out there. And I'm here listing only the machine learning techniques, and there could be a lot more others. But let me quickly go through them. So first one is collaborative filtering, which is very popular. Here the common example is that you have a user and item matrix, and what you want to do is, based on the cases where you have some data, you want to predict what the rating is going to be for the cases where you don't have any data for users because they might not have rated it. And this is based on matrix factorization techniques. If you know about SVD, those are the kind of things that go into doing collaborative filtering. There could be content-based filtering as well. So content-based filtering means that when I talk about a movie, I know about the different kind of information about the movie, what kind of genre it is, what kind of plot it is, what is the title, who is the director, etc. So based on the content of the item, I can figure out what kind of recommendations to make, and this is similarity based. So one of the ways it can be done is that if I have a user, I basically embed the user and the item in the same feature space. And feature space here means what I mentioned, like genre, plot title, director, length of the movie, rating of the movie, etc. It could be in different things which talk about the content. And then when I have embedded them in the same feature space, then I can do some sort of similarity and figure out that this user, what would they like, what are their preferences like. So here rating is not may not really be needed, but we are focusing on what kind of content is about is being captured by these items, and what is the content that user prefers. There could be hybrid recommender systems, which could be a combination of collaborative and content-based filtering, very popular, especially in cases of cold start problems, where for some, so in a typical recommender systems, what could happen is that for some items you have ratings, and for some items there are no ratings because these are new, people have not interacted with them. So you might want to use collaborative filtering and content-based filtering combined in order to find the right recommendations for users. And sort of the recommendations that you get from each of these algorithms, you can find a way of mixing them and serving to the users. Another popular technique is learning to rank based methods. So these are inspired by retrieval systems, and basically what they do is they want to rank an item based on user, item, and other contextual information. And there are different techniques within it, like point-wise, pair-wise, list-wise. So in point-wise, I'm looking at one item at a time. In pair-wise, I'm looking at two items at a time. And in list-wise, I want to look at the entire list that I want to recommend and optimize the entire list at once. So these are like at a high level the ML techniques which are used, but there are other relevance methods which are also used, which are not really ML. They are more sort of analytical. For example, there was a tab on top selling in the screenshots. For top selling, the relevance is essentially popularity at the platform level, and it could be contextualized. So let's say if you are in Andhra Pradesh, and if you open the Play Store and go to movies section, top selling might capture what kind of movies people generally watch in that location and just rank based on that. So here relevance is just platform level popularity, but could be contextualized for a specific location or gender, etc. But those are essentially analytical methods. Now, having understood the different kind of recommendations which can be made, and at a high level how these recommendations are made, which is by learning some sort of relevance functions, I want to come to what kind of recommendations are made in e-commerce. Sure.
Yeah, there is a doubt from Roshan Peter. So the doubt is, could you please elaborate a bit more on the learning to rank with a real life example?
Sure. So let me go to this example of search. When you search for a specific item, let's say you are searching for Meesho, what might happen is that you get a number of different suggestions, and maybe one of the suggestions is the right suggestion for you, so you will end up clicking it. What will happen is that the systems will record that when you searched for this particular item, what was the item that you clicked, what was the most relevant item for you. And if you think about it, this sort of becomes a signal for me that this was my input query, this was the suggestion which was relevant, and for that I can create a label which is sort of 1. And for all the other suggestions which you didn't click were probably not relevant, so I can assume that they were irrelevant and give them a label of 0. Now, in one of the learning to rank methods, what I'll do is, so I'm talking about point-wise now, and I'll show an example for point-wise later as well. But what I'll do with this data is that next time when you come for search, I'll have a model trained which would have looked at these interactions and would identify that when you searched for these, let's say Meesho, the number of different possibilities that I have which could be relevant for the search, what is the probability of one of them being most relevant. So here in this particular case, all I'm going to do is, in point-wise learning to rank method, is solve a binary classification problem. And what that will give me is what is the probability of you clicking this particular suggestion given what your input query is. There could be more details here, but essentially point-wise is going to learn something like that. In a pair-wise setting, what will happen is that I'll compare two items at a time. So to give you an example, let's say you go to Meesho's app and you're looking for black shirt, and you click on one of the suggestions, you'll get a list of recommendations. Now you might get 5 different black shirt as your output, but you might prefer one over the other, right? So you might not really want all of them, but there is a preference order which says that okay, I want black from Puma or some other brand versus black from some other brand. Now in pairwise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare two items at a time and say that out of these two items, the first one was more relevant. And then if first one was more relevant, my label is 1, else it's 0. So according to that, I'll prepare sort of a data and again train a model which can learn this sort of preference. In list wise, what will happen is that, let's say you search for black shirt. I know the entire list of things that are possibly relevant for you, and let's say this list could be of the order of tens of thousands. What I'm going to do in list wise is look at the entire list and optimize it jointly. So in the first case, my loss function is essentially looking at one item at a time. In the second case, pairwise, I'm looking at 2 items at a time. In listwise, I'm going to look at the entire list. So as you would expect, this is becoming progressively harder problem. But learning to rank, what it's trying to do is it's trying to figure out based on your inputs or based on the contextual information I have, what is the rank I should give to a particular user, and this rank could very well be a probability of an item being most relevant for you. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll proceed. Now let's come to the recommendations in specifically in e-commerce. So far we have been talking about what kind of recommendations can be done, how it's done, let's say a common popular app like Google Play Store. But what happens in e-commerce? So if you go to Meesho's app today, what you will see is that if you scroll down a bit on the home page, you'll see a feed which looks like the one on the left. So this is called For You feed. And the title basically says products for you, and you see a bunch of items there. And there are different kinds of collections which are there on the app. For example, highest rated collection, and you see different kinds of items there. There are other kinds of collections as well which are related to price or specific events which are maybe currently happening. There are different categories. For example, there is a category on kitchen utilities, and if you click on them, you'll find something relevant there. In e-commerce, one of the biggest things is that people come and they search for things which they want. So let's say if I search for sari, I see a different number of suggestions for me. There could be image search as well. So search is not only about text, but you could also upload an image and get a suggestion related to what kind of item you're looking for. So on the extreme right, I hope you are curious like what I searched for in that image. And this is the t-shirt which is coming on the top right. It's a sports t-shirt which I searched for, and you see like it's giving me t-shirts which are sort of sports and a combination of either light or dark or one of those. So you can also upload an image to do these kinds of searches, not only text. You can also do voice search. So this happens through Google's engine. So if you click on the mic icon just besides the search bar, you'll get sort of this pop-up where you can speak what you want to search for. Here in this case, I was basically looking for key holders, and I said key holder. It was able to identify, and it gave me a number of different suggestions for key holders. Then there are catalog pages as well. So in the For You feed, which you see on the left, these are basically not individual products, but these are currently in Meesho's app catalog. So what it means is that it's a set of homogeneous products which make a catalog, and which is visible on the right, extreme right, not extreme right, but second from right image. So I was searching for mosquito net, and you see there are different colors of mosquito nets which are there. So these different variants that you are seeing, these are products, and these variants as a set are called catalog. So I could go to catalog page, and then I'm seeing suggestions for different variants, and at the same time, if I scroll down, what I'm also seeing is people also viewed. So these are the different things that people are viewing when they are looking for mosquito nets. Right. So again, a lot of different kind of things I'm doing in order to show you what you might need based on like your history or based on what you are actively looking for. So in the first case, you basically did not do anything, right? You just came on the app, and on the For You feed, I'm showing you a bunch of recommendations. In the search case, maybe there is an intent. So I know that you're looking for a certain thing, and I can give results to you. So there is a specific input that I'm getting. Same with other things. Here, like in catalog page, again, like I know I have contextual information that you are looking for a specific product, and based on that, again, I have an information that these are different kinds of things that you might be looking at. So in different contexts, which are different real states, I have different kind of input that I'm receiving for you. In some cases, I'm not really receiving an input. You just visited the app. In some cases, I have a specific input that, okay, this is the intent that you have. And based on that, I'm doing some math and machine learning behind and figuring out what's the most relevant for you. So these are typical kind of recommendations that you see in any e-commerce platform of your choice today. And you can figure them out in Meesho's app as well. Now the question is again, like, how are you making these recommendations, right? And it comes back to finding out what is the right relevance function given an action that you want users to take, and based on the user context, item context, and other contextual information that I have. I've listed down here. This is not exhaustive. There is certainly more, but different explanations of what relevance could mean. So, for example, relevance could mean that I'm looking for probability of order. Order is the action that I'm looking for. So I want to figure out what is it that people want to order. And the relevance is basically figuring out the probability score for that particular action. And I've put like a given dot here means all the contextual information that I have about user, item, and other platform related features or other information that I might have. So here relevance and action could mean probability of order, probability of click. These two are very popular. Then probability of wish list. So in Meesho's app, you can also save an item that you like and might want to buy later as wish lists. There is a probability of share as well. So you might be sharing something with your friends because you are really liking that item. So there could be a probability of share as relevance. There could be probability of visit. So this might be possible that when we are sending notifications, we want people to eventually visit the app, because if they don't visit, then probably those notifications are not relevant. So relevance could be probability and action could be visit. Similarly, there could be probability of availing some discount. There could be probability of churn, probability of fraud, probability of return. So all of these different kinds of relevance and actions one might be interested in. There could be non-probabilistic relevance functions as well. For example, popularity is something I mentioned about, which is sort of the top selling product or most popular product which is simply analytics, right? There could be relevance could be based on rating score. For example, there was a collection which was highly rated in Meesho's app, right? So the second one here is highest rated. So here the relevance function is based on the rating of the product. There could be other things as relevance. So in search, you might be looking for syntactic match, where I'm just interested in the exact word that I'm looking for. And syntactic match is something which also happens when you go on Google search and you put a keyword in double quotes. It's sort of doing a syntactic match as well there to show you recommendations. There could be semantic match. So for example, you might go to Meesho's app and search for kitchen utility. Now, kitchen utility is really broad. So it could be something, let's say a hanger that you want to put in a kitchen, or it could be some utensil that you want to buy, etc. Right? So here, kitchen utility, as it is not a product, but it's a range of products, and I might, if I search for kitchen utility, I might not really get any relevant product for you. So I have to figure out what do you really mean by it. So there you have to do some sort of semantic match. Image similarity is something I showed you, that you uploaded something, and relevance is basically trying to figure out what's the closest match for the image that you put. These are like host of different relevance and actions that I might be interested in. Certainly this is not all. There could be more. What are the different items that I might be interested in? So I might be interested in catalog, which I mentioned is a coherent or a homogeneous set of products. I might be interested in individual product as well, right? So when you go to a catalog page, I'm trying to find out relevance for an individual product and rank them when I'm showing you these tens of different variants. Um, Item could be image. For an item search, basically the input was an image. It could be text for search, text search. Item could be user. So where an item could be user is when I'm trying to figure out if user is going to churn. Right? So there I'm not really doing any item recommendation. Maybe you didn't visit for a very long time, and I'm trying to figure out what's the probability of churn given that you have not visited in last 7 days. Item could be coupons. So there could be hundreds of different coupons that some of these e-commerce platforms or food delivery companies have, and they could be building a model in order to figure out what is the probability of you availing a coupon, availing a discount given a certain coupon. So item here is coupon, and the action that I'm interested in is avail, and relevance is probability. There could item could be also notification. So I might want to sort of figure out what is the right notification to send. So I'm going to find relevance of you, relevance of click given a notification. It's there again, like there could be many more different items you can think of. Users could be end customer, which is regular user going on the app. There could be resellers, there could be suppliers who onboard different products. So where supplier could be a user is because Meesho also recommends products to suppliers in the supplier dashboard, which means that a supplier who's on the app, they would probably want to, of course, increase their business, right? And they might not know what kind of products could sell. So we provide recommendations to them as well. So there, the user is the supplier, not the end customer. And what do I mean by context here, which I've represented as the capital X? Certainly, like context could mean in addition to what is listed here. So, but one of the basic things about context is where do you want to surface these recommendations? So the relevance is dependent upon the context, because if the context is search, it's a different problem compared to a context of for you feed. But the context could be for you feed, category page, collection page, product page, text search, image search, voice search. Surprisingly, visit and no visit could also be context. And I gave an example of both, right? So if you visit an app, that itself becomes a context for us to run a lot of different ML models which are doing the predictions for you and serving you the best experience. No visit could become context, because if you are not visiting the app for a very long time, I might automatically trigger an ML model which says that what is the probability of you churning from the system, and accordingly take an action. So context could also not be very visible at first, because visit and no visit is something that maybe you will not think of context but could become context. It was a long slide. I'll take a pause in case there are any questions. Okay, I'll proceed. So having understood what are the different kind of recommendations that are there, how we learn these recommendations in general, and then specifically for e-commerce, what are the different kinds of recommendations which are there, what are the different kinds of relevance functions, context, items, users, etc. Let's come to the specific focus on product recommendations to a billion users or billions of users in e-commerce, because that is what Meesho is aiming for. We want to build a platform which can serve billions of users, basically all of the country, and we want to have a system which is robust enough, which is capable enough in order to do this or achieve this. Now I've given you like a lot of screenshots and sort of ideas about what these recommendation systems are. I want to give you a more insight into how these typical product recommendations models are built. So this is what any model at Meesho might look like. And here I'm taking an example where the relevance is basically a probability score, and the action that I'm looking for is orders. Let me build it ground up in order to understand what this really means. So when a user is coming on the platform, they might have already made certain orders. So on the left, at the bottom on the left side, what you see are different things related to users. So what is their order history? And order history could mean the different kind of items that they have bought. They might have bought from different suppliers. So what is the supplier history that user was generally interested in? What are the different things that user has searched on the platform? And it could be more than search as well, like you might be browsing a number of things. I might also capture that. And there could be other user related information, for example, age, gender, ratings, location, etc. So all of these things can become input, which creates an understanding of what this user is really like, what are the preferences, what are the things they are looking at, what are the kind of items they order, what are the kind of suppliers that they order from, etc. Then I have something called item info. Item info here means that the specific item that I'm interested in. So on the left I have some sort of a user profile. Now I have item info where I'm looking at this one particular item and saying that, okay, what are the properties of this item? So it could be name, description, category, uniqueness of the item compared to all other items on the platform. What are the similar items compared to this item? It could be price of the item as well. It could be rating of the item as well. Then I have supplier info, which is again like for this particular item, there is a specific supplier which is giving this item, right? So what is the property of this supplier like? So again, ratings, different kind of items that they have sold, the age of the supplier on the platform, the location, how frequently they cancel an order, etc. And now I might also have some platform related information. So for the item that I'm interested in, what are the other similar items, what are the popularity of the category to which this item belongs, some location derived features, because location in same kind of item in different locations, people might have slightly different preferences. Now if you just think about all of these different types of inputs, and really understand what's going on, is that I have a certain understanding of what the user is like and what they are looking at, what is their sort of, I'm trying to capture what kind of intent that they might have when they visit the app. Now I have this item and supplier and platform related information, and for the item what I want is how likely is that user going to order this particular information, this particular item. So does it match to their preferences? Does it match the suppliers, kind of suppliers that they order things from? Does it match the sort of global properties that I know about that particular location or category? So all of these things I'm sort of trying to capture here, and these things will become features for my model. And I've represented features as a capital X here, and then these features will then be passed to some machine learning model, using which will try to estimate what is the probability of order given all of this information. Now, depending upon the kind of model, your machine learning model and features could be just one block. So let's say if you have an end-to-end deep learning model, you are basically going to, if possible, just pass the raw features and let it learn the vectors which represent these features on its own, rather than you handcrafting it. Right? So there could be different variations here. I'm just showing you like what is the most popular approach, what it's typically going to look like. Another thing, very interesting thing, if you notice, is that the features are of different kind in a different nature as well. So some of the features are sort of single values or static in nature. For example, age, gender, ratings, name, description, etc. These are just one single values, but there could be other features which have a sequential nature to them. So for example, order history, there is a sequence to it. So things that you were buying 6 months before, and the things that you are probably buying today, they are different, and your intent has changed. So to give an example, when people have kids, the kind of things that they would be buying earlier could be very different compared to the kinds of things that they might be buying now. So there is a sequence there that you also have to sort of understand how to process. right? And similarly, sequence for search could be there,
Hello,
suppliers could be there, etc.
Abhay, there is one.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. There is one
Sure.
question.
Sure.
It is from Pujita. Sir,
Yeah.
if an items have similar properties, then how ranking can be done to that particular item?
Yeah, so very interesting question. One of the questions could be why we are even interested in similar items, right? I have a particular item. I just want to know the score for this particular item. What is the relevance score for this particular item, right? Why bother about other items? You might want to find out about other items related to this, especially in the cases where, let's say, this is a completely new item. I don't know enough about it, and if you can figure out what are the other similar items to this, I might be able to learn some sort of features from them, like okay, this is sort of, let's say, a completely new brand and new product, let's say a new trending clothing style, right? And I know that this trend was there last year, so I might not have some recent information about this trend, but if I go back last year, I would figure out that, okay, for this particular trend, which was earlier there, how well did it perform on the platform? And that I can use to build my features. So basically, I'm appending information of for an item where I don't really have enough understanding of how this is going to work based on the other items which are there, which probably worked or didn't work in the past. So that is the kind of thing that I'm looking at here. I hope that answers the question, but I can take a follow-up if it's not clear.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I'll proceed. So yeah, there is a lot going on in this slide, but this is realistically how a recommendation model in an e-commerce company is likely to look like. And based on, again, the context, so here what I have not included is the real estate context that I'm talking about. What do I mean by that is, if you have something, let's say, on a category page or a collections page versus for you page, you might be interested in a different action or a relevance function. So for example, if you are looking at top selling, maybe a user item and supplier information is not really needed. All I can do is find out what are the top selling items at the platform level. Some information could be there, like mentioned earlier, that maybe I'm looking at top selling in a specific location where you have opened the app, right? But if it's a machine learning model, this is most likely how it's going to look like. Now, again, let's go to the next level of detail, how you are going to actually build this ML model. So here I also talked about earlier about point-wise learning to rank model. Here I'm giving you a specific example, which hopefully you will be able to relate to and understand. So on the table on the left, what I'm showing you is there are 5 different users. When they came on the For You feed, these are the different product IDs that I recommended to them. And in each of the case, basically user 4 didn't order anything, but other users ordered some item that I recommended to them. Now, using this information, what I can do is I can create sort of a purchase, no purchase, or order, no order sort of signal. So for every pair, so let's go in the second table from the left. What I'm saying is that user 1 item 23, probably not relevant. So I'll put it at 0 because I know that user 1 ordered 21, item 21. So there it's relevant in the context of order. So I give it a label of 1. So in this manner, what I'm going to do is look at all the sessions and see where did I find something, where did the user find something relevant and what was not relevant for them in the same session. Right. So I create this sort of binary signal out of all the interactions that user had on the app. And you would notice that user 4 is not there in the second table. User 4 is not there because it seems that everything was irrelevant for them. So I don't really know what was relevant. So it's not a signal that really provides any information which I can use in order to differentiate between what was right for the user and what was not. And this can happen on an e-commerce company, right? People don't come on the app and immediately make a decision that I'll buy this product. They'll probably come, they'll click on a few items, and they'll go back, come a few hours later, and or a few days later, and go ahead and make a purchase, right? So immediately that intent may not appear. And here, it's also possible that that intent is not there because I'm looking at orders. Maybe if I looked at clicks, people might have still clicked some of the items that I showed to them. But here in the context of orders, it's going to look different. In context of clicks, again, it's going to look different. But let's continue with orders, because in the previous slide also we were sort of thinking about relevance score in terms of orders. So here I take all the cases where I got some sort of relevance information from user, and then I use those cases in order to say that, okay, this was relevant, this was irrelevant. I create these sort of binary signals, and now I partition this data for training and test. On the training for point-wise learning to rank model, I'll build some sort of binary classifier, and you can choose the binary classifier of your choice, whether you like logistic regression or random forest or GBMs or a neural network. It's up to you. And then based on the test data set, I'll evaluate what this model performance is like. And for ranking and recommendations case, the most popular metrics are NDCG, which is normalized discounted cumulative gain. I'll request you guys to go and check it out. What does it really mean? Mean reciprocal rank, AUC because this is a binary classification case. Precision at top K positions, recall at top K positions, etc. So these are the kind of metrics which are popular in the research literature as well as in the industry for a typical point-wise learning to rank kind of model. At a high level, what NDCG and mean reciprocal rank and precision at K and recall at K are trying to do is figure out how relevant your ordering of items was when you came on the app, when I showed you those recommendations. So here an interesting thing to notice that or think about is that how are you really going to partition your training data? When you have all of these binary signals, are you just going to do a simple random sampling in order to create partitions, or are you going to partition it at a user level? Are you going to partition at a session level? What is the kind of partitioning which makes the most sense is something. It's not a simple problem. Again, it could depend on the context, and I'll briefly go into it a bit later. Now let's start with the challenges that you're going to face, right, when you make product recommendations in e-commerce for billions of users. So far we have understood what recommendations mean, what are the different kinds of recommendations which are done, where they are done, how they are done in the e-commerce industry and not in the e-commerce industry, just on an app like Play Store. And then specifically for product recommendations, how do you do it? So I'll just go back again. So how you do typically a product recommendation is you find out what the order preferences are, and for a particular product that you are interested in, you figure out different details related to its properties, supplier properties, and other platform related properties, and find out a relevance score, right? But what are the challenges that you are going to face? So one of the very first challenges at our scale in which Meesho operates, and let me give you like a brief idea of what do I mean by this scale. So every day there are 50 to 60 billion events which get generated on our platform. And what do I mean by these events is people are clicking on different things, viewing different things, they are ordering things, they are adding to cart, they are sharing, wish listing, searching, etc. So all of these are events, and we have 50 to 60 billion such events today which are getting generated, and we are only growing. There is 3 to 4 terabytes of data as a result of all of these events which get generated every day. When we are doing analytics, we are sort of scanning 3 to 4 petabytes of data every day. So that is the kind of volume that we have. So the very first question which a data scientist will face when they want to build a ML model from this volume of data is, do you really need all the data to build a model? Because it seems like it seems like a really big task and impossible task to use all of the data. So how much data will you really require in order to train a decent model which works well for your metrics that you care about? And typically what you would want to do is you would want to take into account what are the daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly seasonal patterns. So depending upon the type of problem that you're working on, one of them could be the right seasonal pattern. So for example, for forecasting problems, you might look for a longer time duration, while for recommendations problem, you might look for a shorter time duration. But you still have to figure out, are there seasonalities? For example, even in the case of recommendations, there could be weekend versus non-weekend sort of seasonality. So you have to understand what kind of seasonal patterns exist. Does this seasonal pattern impact your model building or the problem that you're solving in a negative manner? If it does, then you have to take into account and consider the kind of data appropriately. And even let's say if you just want to take 1 week of data, it's still sort of 4 terabytes of data multiplied by 7, like 28, 30 terabytes of data. Processing it is still going to be really challenging. So what you would want to do is figure out how to sample it appropriately. And again, like sampling could mean finding out that what is the right sampling strategy for the specific problem that you're working on. For example, if I'm looking at user personalization, and if I sample in a manner such that I don't consider entire user journey, I might not really capture interesting patterns. So you have to really think about how you're going to get a representative sample, even when you have just considered for a few days of data or weeks worth of data. Second thing, when you're training ML models, the challenge you'll face is how do you create training and test data sets. So I alluded to it a bit earlier. And the options that you'll have to you generally have is split at a session level. So you would want to do this if you want to optimize for conversions for a particular session. But again, you have to be careful which session data you put in training and which session data you put in test. So if there is a case that you put your session data in test, which is sort of coming from the past, and future session data is in the training set, then there is a leakage which is happening there. So even if you are doing this kind of splitting, you have to be careful how you do it. You might want to just do a user level partitioning, or you might want to do a query level partitioning. So query level partitioning could happen for cases like search. We are just looking at individual queries, and you might want to partition there, or it could be simply an out of time partitioning. So I sort of draw a timeline and say that before this date, I'll take X history of data for training, and rest of the data in future as my testing data. So again, depending upon the problem, you have to consider all of these different aspects, and this is not enough. Based on your problems, you might have to consider a very different splitting strategy for creating training and test data set. Okay, you have figured out how much data to take, how to split and create training and test. Let's say you are able to choose an algorithm of your choice. Let's say a gradient boosting machines. The problem again with typical ML algorithms is that there are a lot of hyperparameters, and if it's a deep learning model, then there could be like a lot of consideration that you have to do in order to figure out how to properly tune them. And the popular examples for doing hyperparameter tuning are grid search, random search, or Bayesian search. But given the volume of data, each of the iterations, so think about grid search and 7-8 parameters that a GBM would have. And for each of the parameter, you might want to try 4 or 5 different values. The number of combinations would just explode. And it would, if you consider tuning it for the entire training set, it might take months before you get the right model, and by that time your data might have already sort of lost its meaning, because something new is going to happen now, or new trend has picked up, etc. Right? So you have to consider like sampling. Again, like we sampled from the raw data set, and we split it up into training and test, where again the data size is reduced, but even after that it's probably too big in order to do hyperparameter tuning, and you have to again figure out the right way of sampling, and you'll start thinking about all the questions that in sampling that you thought earlier, that what's the right sampling strategy here. Okay, now you have, let's say, found out a model that's tuned, that's working well for the metrics that you care about. You would want to know what do you monitor for these models at this scale? Because if you deploy it and things are not going well, then you have to figure out as early as possible. So you monitor for some of the things that you monitor for are feature drift. Feature drift means that your distributions for features are changing. You have to think about concept drift and monitor that. Concept drift mean that the thing that you're predicting, that itself is changing, so this could happen for forecasting problems, or it could also happen because some new categories have come up on the platform, and suddenly like people are moving to these new categories of items because they are more interesting now. So the tendency or the behavior of people have completely changed. You also have to monitor for unexpected feature values. So it's possible that when you deploy, you end up getting a lot of null values, or values that you don't expect in the production system, and you didn't account for when you were building your model, training your model offline. An important thing is that you do want to consider business metrics even if you don't consider anything else, because eventually any machine learning model has to create business for the platform. Because we work in sort of an applied domain, if it's not improving the business metrics, then you have to go back and figure out what to change in order to achieve the right sort of direction for those business metrics. In an e-commerce company like Meesho, where people come all the time, you have to care about latency as well. So typically so let's say you visit the app. On the For You page, a request will go for fetching the recommendations for you. And typically, like within sub 100 milliseconds, we would want to get from the request to personalizing and serving the feed to you. So latency is really important. To give you like a pathological example, if you go on search and I have a model which is like the best model in the world, but takes 5 seconds to return the results, you are not going to use search ever, right? Because we are used to searching something and immediately getting it. So latency could become really important depending upon the context where we are thinking of building these models. How do you refresh the model, right? So you have built the model, you have trained the model, fine-tuned it, deployed it, monitoring it. How do you choose to refresh? So you have to figure out, you have to create alerts on how input and output distributions change, which could be signals from feature drift, concept drift, unexpected feature values, etc. But it could also be sometimes manual. So it's possible that something completely new has happened. So let's say Diwali is coming, and now for the next 2 weeks, people are going to buy something completely different. Right? Or let's say Diwali has ended, and all the inputs that the model was getting are from Diwali time, but they are not relevant anymore. Right. So you might want to figure out like, do I need a model refresh, or should I use some other strategy in order to serve the right recommendations, because that context is not relevant anymore. So having talked about all of this, a machine learning model could still fail, and this is not uncommon. What might happen is that when you're training the model, you're basically looking at historical data. By the time everything is already sort of set in stone, things are fixed. But when you are serving these recommendations, actually doing an evaluation and giving these recommendations in real time, the data, the kind of data and the distribution of data available during serving could be vastly different compared to what you had in the history for the same features. And it could be because of engineering reasons, instrumentation reasons, there could be many different reasons. And you did everything right up till this point, but you deploy it, you find that okay, this is not performing well, and this is a scenario which you have to consider. And if it happens, then you have to figure out a way of logging the same kind of features that you get during serving, which you will then eventually use in order to train the model, so that this disparity of distribution is not there. Right. So this is sort of one of the challenges, and this comes like every day that you want to train a machine learning model, you have to think about all of these decisions at an e-commerce company like Meesho. I'll take a pause here in case there are any questions, and then go to the next slide. Okay, let's go to the next challenge that you'll face. So next challenge is that, yeah, we are talking about ranking and recommendations. It seems like there are techniques like collaborative filtering, content-based filtering, learning to rank, etc. But there is more to the technique. It's also about what kind of problem that you're solving, and to think about, does one model fit all use cases? So if I build a system which can, given a user and item, give me a score of relevance, is it going to work everywhere for all use cases? So I'll bring in different perspectives here. So there could be a user perspective here, and there could be natural cohorts within the user group, for example, geo-based, gender, age, etc. And this cohort might be very, very different compared to a different cohort. So for example, geo is a very common factor, right? So if a company is, let's say, multinational, the kind of products and behaviors that exist in one country will not generalize in another country, because there people buy different kind of things, the availability of products is different, and therefore you might want to capture this behavior separately as a separate model, because not even the information could be overlapping in both the cases all the time. So you might want to think about, like, what do I need, a one model, or do I need different kind of models here? There could be user cohorts which have very different needs in a different sense as well. So there could be users who are sticky versus explorers. So people who always tend to buy similar kind of things that they bought in the past. There could be a user cohort which are more open-minded and they keep trying out new things. Now, if I build a model for sticky users, that's not going to work for explorers, because it's going to see that, okay, this is the kind of history that they have, and let's just recommend based on that history, and they might not like it because they are seeing the same old stuff that they have already either bought or browsed. There could be new users versus old users problem. So for new users, we know a lot of history. For old users, we know a lot of history, but for new users, we don't really know a lot. And you might have to think of a different model, because the features might not even be available, all the features that we talked about in earlier. So this is the user perspective. There is a different perspective coming from product and the supplier itself. So there could be new and old suppliers. And again, the same problem of new and old users would exist here. There could be new and old products as well, for which you might have to build a completely different model, because for new product, again, like, I don't have enough information, so I don't know what's their relevance is going to be like, and probably think of that problem as a different way. And there is another problem of popularity versus long tail. So usually, like, the most popular items keep getting shown to users all the time, versus there could be like a long tail product, which is, let's say, some sort of a smart bulb, and there are like very small segment of users who really like that kind of stuff. How do you make sure that this gets shown to them and they are able to find it on the platform in the presence of a lot of other popular items which are there? There could be seasonal versus non-seasonal kind of behaviors, and this can especially happen for products. And give an example of Diwali. So there's a set of products like candle lights and different kinds of lights which are just popular and relevant for a very small duration, and not after that. So how do you account for that? Is it the same model which is going to handle it, or is it going to be different kind of model that you have to build for that short period of time, which will be just relevant in that time, and then you basically parse it? There could be application perspective as well, which I've already talked about enough. So for example, home feed, category pages, search pages, etc. all of these might require different modeling approaches. To give an example, a concrete example, in search, what you care about is latency quite a lot, right? If I give you the best model, but give results in 5 seconds, it's not really useful. So I have to probably figure out a different strategy of building models and different kind of models as well, because remember, like search is getting different kind of input versus for you feed, you are just visiting the app. There is no specific input that I'm getting from you. And there could be engineering perspective as well. For example, real time versus batch models. So batch models are the models which basically run every few hours. They create a prediction, and when users come, you just read from these predictions. Versus real time, which what they do is, as soon as you come on the app, at the same time I'm going to compute all the features and figure out what to recommend. There could be these kinds of perspective as well. And in batch model, you typically have the luxury of building a more sophisticated model, because you are doing it all offline, and in the runtime I'm just reading these predictions. So it could be like a very complicated model, but in real time you have to figure out like if this model is going to return me predictions in the time that I need, and will it have all the information that I'll need, right? So yeah, this is again sort of a challenge which, as a data scientist, or a product manager or a business manager, you have to kind of think, for your use case in e-commerce, that what is the specific problem that I'm solving here, and what kind of model should be the right one in order to address this business problem. I'll go to the third challenge. So we talked about serving a lot and latency a lot, right? Here I want to expand on the earlier diagram that I showed you, to explain you how recommendations are served at this kind of scale, at Meesho, where billions of events get generated and millions of users are visiting every day. So earlier I showed you recommendations system as sort of a black box. Here I'm expanding on that. So what really happens in a typical recommendation engine is, you have millions of items, and you have this user and some context related to where you want to learn or show these relevant items. First, you put all of these users to something called a candidate generator. What this candidate generator is supposed to do is, it will take all of these millions of items and it will sort of filter out items, but it should have sort of a high recall. So I'm going from millions to thousands, but I want to capture all the items that you might be interested in. So I'm interested in recall here. The ordering as such is not really relevant. So here, although I've color coded it, but the first item, which is the dark most, is not maybe really the most relevant item for the user. The ordering could mean a different thing here, which is specific for the candidate generator, but may not be specific for the user. But what I do care about is that I capture all the items that you might be interested in. So I reduce my item set from millions to thousands, and then I'm going to re-rank these items. And again, I'm bringing in the user and the other contextual information I have for these thousands of items, and then eventually come to hundreds of items, which will appear on your For You feeds, search results, etc., etc. And these hundreds of items are the ones which are relevant for the user. These should have the right kind of ordering, so that I'm maximizing my NDCG, precision at K, recall at K, MMR, those sorts of metrics.
There is one question from Dr. Subhashini.
Sure.
Yeah, please explain in detail about the filtering process. Will it be stepwise, or at one lot will it filter based on keywords?
So I hope the filtering means candidate generator here. Can you confirm that?
Yeah, I hope she needs to type it down. Meanwhile, I will ask you the next question from Pujita.
Sure.
Yeah, it seems whatever you have said, it is correct regarding the filtering.
Okay, so in candidate generator, the way it's going to happen is, so first of all, some details, right? The candidate generator is not really always one model. It could be many different models. And what happens with candidate generator is, it's a really lightweight model. And I'll give you like a realistic example which we use. So what we do is, for every user and item, these are essentially IDs at the end of the day, right? There is certain user ID, certain item ID. I don't know what that ID is on the user side. On the item side, I know what that ID is. What I want to find out is some sort of relevance here, but this relevance has to come cheap for me in candidate generator. So it is a lightweight model. The way it will work is that we have vector representations for all of these. So let's say we embed items and users, all of them in 100 dimension vectors. And once we embed all of them in this common vector space, what in candidate generator we are going to do is do a nearest neighbor search. And there are popular libraries like Annoy built by Spotify, which work really well for these use cases. So once these embeddings are in the same vector space, you do nearest neighbor search and say that, okay, what are the closest 1000 neighbors for this particular user? And that is how you sort of build candidate generator. There could be other candidate generators as well, which are sort of simple rule based. So let's say I would want to include a particular category and some n number of items for that particular category. Why you might want to do is because this is sort of a long tail item. No one is going to ever, no algorithm is ever going to optimize for it if you don't sort of give it to it in sort of a rule based fashion. So there could be like simple rule based strategies as well in order to do this candidate generation. And these thousands of candidates could come from like an accumulation of all of these different candidates that I'm getting from all of these different strategies. So it's a stepwise, in the sense that there could be like 4 or 5 rules based on which I eventually come up with the candidates, but it's sort of an ensemble at the end of it. So I might have 5 different models for candidate generation. Each of these models could be sort of a lightweight ML model in itself, or it could be like step of 4 or 5 steps, which are essentially rules. But once each of these candidate generators give me a set of candidates, I merge them all, and that becomes like the thousands of candidates that I'm showing here.
So Abhay, there is one more question. There is a question from Pujita. Sir, if a customer is consuming different products which is not related to each other, then in that case, how can we give reference page to the customer? In that case, what type of products can be suggested to the customer?
Sure. So if I understood the question right, the question is that if people are looking at different kind of products which are not related to each other, how will I make the recommendations? So if let's say you are looking at different kind of products, think about what will happen in the probabilistic sense. I'll have sort of a low but hopefully close or similar probabilities of relevance for each of these items, right? So if I looked at, let's say, books, and then I looked at clothes, and then I looked at kitchen utensils, it seems like a mix of different things which are not really related to each other. But because you looked through so many different things, my probability is not really, I'm not really confident from a model standpoint on any of these items. So their probability scores are eventually going to be very, very close to each other. And therefore, in many cases, the model will on its own rank them in the fashion that you're browsing. So it's going to be sort of a mix of different things eventually. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'll go ahead. So in this candidate generation step, again, like why we have divided the entire ranking process in these 2 different steps where we are doing candidate generation and re-ranking is because there is this requirement of serving from request from request. So let's say you just visit an app, there is a request which goes to different models in order to serve you. So from that point, when you visited the app, for us to then personalize the journeys for you, we want to do it within sub 100 milliseconds. So that is why we have to sort of optimize it in this manner, where some part is lightweight model generates candidates for us and also does the filtering, and then a re-ranker can be fairly sophisticated model, but since it has to rank only thousands, it could do it in the specified time. And you would also want to, like, again, like this is a challenging problem, right? How do you even do this in sub 100 milliseconds? So you might also want to help it by pre-computing some of the features you can. So for example, all the things which are going to be static for you, your age or age on the platform or supplier related information, historically how they have served different kind of products to users, etc. Those are like historical information. I don't really necessarily need to compute it in real time, so I can pre-compute it, keep it in my databases, and then just read from here. Again, like you might have to think what kind of databases to use. So there are like popular databases like Cassandra, Redis, etc., which have really low read times. So those are the kind of things that you would want to use. And you might also want to then make sure that your system is robust enough. So there are things like auto scaling on the infrastructure side, which you might want to enable in order to handle the traffic surge. So this could happen especially on sales days, right? That there is a sale for 30% discount across all products, and suddenly your traffic volumes are 10 times, 20 times than they regularly are. So you cannot, like at that point, manually keep on adding more resources to the system. So you have to figure out a way of auto scaling your infrastructure so that it also adds more compute resources as the traffic increases. Yeah, let me move to the next challenge. So this, I think we have already discussed quite a bit. So this is a challenging problem, right? Short-term interest versus long-term interest of a user. And how do I adapt recommendations for recent browsing versus historical behavior? So yeah, you are like, let's say last time you usually, let's say, buy clothing sort of items on Meesho, and now you are looking for a slate kind of tablet for your kid who is maybe just learning how to write ABCD, right? So this is a completely different browsing behavior as opposed to what your historical behavior has been like. So how do I adapt my recommendations suddenly for the new behavior that you're showing on the platform? This is, again, there are many different ways of solving it. One of it could be that, let's say I have this For You feed, maybe top few items of the For You feed, I just personalize it based on the recent experiences that recent things that you are looking for, and rest of it for the historical behavior. Again, like there are different strategies which can be used here. This can also happen long-term versus short-term interest change because of a life event. So you got married, and then during the time of your marriage, maybe you were searching for very different items compared to when you were a bachelor. So how do I adapt to this kind of life event for you? It can also happen during the post purchases, right? So you were looking for, let's say, a shirt, and you have bought the shirt. Should I keep recommending you shirts now? Or maybe for some time now, I should be showing you other related items, shirts, let's say a pant or something else, right? So what should be the post-purchase experience? Again, this is a challenge, and you have to think like, do you really want to solve it? If you want to solve it, then how do you go about it? It's not an easy problem at all. And then if you think about like all those ranking techniques, they don't by default address any of these challenges, right? You have to figure out how to do it. Let me go to the next challenge, which is really important and becoming increasingly important every day. Is that every recommendation system on an e-commerce platform like Meesho, there are multiple stakeholders which get impacted by this by the recommendations that we show. So what are these different stakeholders? There are users who want to see relevant products. There are resellers who are essentially entrepreneurs on the platform who resell these products, and what you want to show them is not only relevant products but also product clusters, because they might be interested in group of products, not just an individual product. There are suppliers who want to grow on the platform, right? If our recommendations are over indexed for a few particular suppliers and few particular products coming from those suppliers, then what is the opportunity there for other suppliers? So you have to somehow make sure that suppliers are getting, even if they are new on the platform, they are getting some visibility on the platform in order to grow. So there is a supplier interest as well, which could get negatively or positively impacted by the kind of recommendations that I'm making. And there is platform as well, right? When we are making all of these recommendations, we want to make sure that we are doing it in a sustainable manner, because eventually what we want to do is we want to democratize internet commerce for everyone. We want to enable 100 million small businesses on the platform. And if we are not doing it in a sustainable manner, there is no hope that we are going to be able to achieve those kinds of targets. So sustainable should not mean that we are just burning cash on discounts and sales, but we are also figuring out how to do it in a manner such that user get the right kind of items without negatively impacting the platform in general, suppliers and resellers, etc. Right. So these are all the different stakeholders of the system which get impacted by all these ranking and recommendation systems, right? So it's not one objective of just do it for the user and it will just be done. You have to figure out that how I'm going to address the interest of other stakeholders of the system. So eventually a recommendation system has to be built keeping in mind these multiple stakeholders and multiple objectives that they may have. Again, none of the techniques that we talked about, right, collaborative filtering, content-based filtering, learning to rank methods, hybrid systems, none of them really address it out of the box. You have to find out a way of addressing it yourself. What are the other challenges? I'm just doing a laundry listing here. There are definitely a lot more challenges than what I'm discussing today. So there is a problem of duplicate products. So let's say I have 10 different suppliers uploading 10 different products. All of these products are exactly same. Let's say a black T-shirt, and you're searching for black T-shirt, or you want to buy black T-shirt. Should I populate your recommendations with all of these 10 different black T-shirts which are exactly same? Maybe not, right? So how do I handle these duplicate products in an intelligent way? It's a very challenging problem, and this may be addressed at a small scale. Maybe you can write a script or manually go through all the products on the catalog and filter out the duplicates. But at our scale, where like there are billions of products, millions of catalogs, it's not possible to do it manually. You have to find out an automated, intelligent way to do it. There is a challenge of position bias as well. So the things that you see on the top of your recommendations are generally what you end up clicking and buying. You probably won't go to 1,000th item and buy it, right? So there is an inherent bias that is coming from the position, how we position that item itself, right? And this is like the second page of Google. No one goes to that. Like you're just clicking on things on the first page. So how do I make sure that this bias that is creating as a result of me showing something at a particular position does not negatively impact in the long run? Popularity bias is something we already talked about. Diversity and freshness is again something of a research problem here. That if you are looking at clothing sort of things, how do I make sure that when new clothing items come, I show you the fresh items, or I don't really over index on one particular category of items that you have bought before or visited before? How do I show you more items so that you understand like these are different options you have on the platform? And these are important for the long-term sustainability as well, right? If you come on the Meesho's app and every day you are just seeing kurtis, you might think that Meesho is a kurti app. It's not really that, right? There are kitchen utensils as well. So how do I make sure that this diversity is brought to you in a manner which is also relevant to you? So it's again like a really hard problem to solve, but you have to figure out a way of addressing it. And there could be a problem of degenerate feedback loops as well. What do I mean by that is that when you are a student, you might be like, you might just have a very small pocket money and you might be buying let's say t-shirt of 200 rupees, or a kurti of 250 rupees, something like that, right? And now you have a job in corporate, you are earning really nice. You want to like buy stuff which is more pricey, you can afford, etc. You want to look nicer, but because there is this big history of many years where you kept on buying certain things, how do I make sure that this is not a loop which is negatively impacting your experience? And there is a way I can identify and break from this loop and show you the kind of items that you would want now. Because history could play a very important role in biasing recommendations in a certain manner. So how do I break from that loop? These kinds of feedback loop. So if you have like a change like that, in your life, we have to somehow find a way of adapting it and breaking this loop and showing you more relevant stuff with respect to your recent behavior. And again, like one of the last challenge that I'm mentioning here, it's also an area of research and very important, is how do I explain the recommendations. So all machine learning models at some level act like black boxes, or could act like black boxes. It's a deep learning model. It's again really hard to understand what's going on. But at the end of the day, you might want to figure out, like, if I'm getting a recommendation for a particular item, what is the reasoning behind it? And if I can find out the reasoning behind it, then maybe if it's not the right recommendation, find a way to correct it. If it's the right recommendation, then be able to understand it. And explainability is a hard problem. It's an active area of research, but often in conversations, you tend to find a way to explain them. So if let's say your model is sort of a logistic regression model, which you are using for pointwise learning to rank, you can figure out a way of looking at the parameter values and say that, okay, this parameter value is high, therefore you got recommended this particular kind of item. But it's still complex even for these sort of explanatory models, because you might be representing an item with a vector of 100 dimensions, and logistic regression is giving weight for each of these dimensions. Now, how do you understand this vector, right? So explainability, even for traditional statistical models which are of explanatory nature, it may not really be explainable because you have features which are encoded in a different manner. So these are these certainly not all the challenges. There are a lot more challenges and research areas in this domain which you have to work on and figure out when we are making recommendations.
Abhay? Yeah, here we have a question.
Sure.
So from Priyadarshini R. So, sir, is there any recommendation algorithm exclusively done for vendors? Most of the algorithms are addressing the customers, for example, return management, etc.
Right. So in Meesho, we do have a supplier dashboard where we make different kind of recommendations to suppliers. For example, inventory recommendations for a particular product, what kind of inventory they should keep. We also give recommendations to them about different kind of products that they can onboard on the system. So if you are a new supplier, you might not know how e-commerce world looks like, and you might want help from the platform in order to get the right kind of products which will sell and help you grow. So there are recommendation systems that we have for suppliers, but as a user, user app won't have that kind of view, right? But suppliers do get that kind of view and those kinds of recommendations. At the end of the day, when you're just solving for user or just solving for suppliers alone, you might end up using same kind of techniques, but the features could be different, the objectives could be different. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Yeah. And in fact, like if you remember where I was explaining what are the different kind of relevance functions, items, users, in user list, I had the end user as well as the reseller and supplier. So user could mean anything here, right? Any of these three. Yeah, so I just walked you through different challenges, and yeah, these are certainly not all. There are a lot more challenging things and areas of research within this domain. Now I'll give a brief summary as well as concluding remarks. So basically what I've tried to hopefully explain to you, and you are able to understand it now, that building a recommendation system requires solving a lot of complex problems. It's not straightforward. It's not just about learning a technique. It's about understanding what is the problem that you're trying to solve. And what kind of impact that you want, what are the different stakeholders who are going to get impacted, what is the real state where you want to solve this problem. There are a host of different things you have to consider in order to build a recommendation system. It's not really a simple problem. It's very complex, and you have to appreciate this complexity in order to find out the right way of solving the problem. If you don't appreciate the complexity, you might find yourself in a place where you are you have invested 6 months and then you're sort of building a new system ground up because you didn't address the problem at hand, right? So you have to think about all of the things that we talked about during the course of this talk in order to come up with the right problem, right objectives, and then choose like what are the techniques that work for you. In some cases you might have to use ideas from existing methods in order to come up with your own methods. And at Meesho, we are addressing the things that we had talked about. So we are building learning to rank and deep learning methods, models for product recommendations across different real estates. We are building machine learning and deep learning methods based models to solve for user, item, and supplier cold start problems, right? So cold start problem is when I don't have any information about user, item, and supplier because they are completely new on the platform. How do I make sure that I'm giving the right recommendations? We are working on creating a feature store which enables real-time recommendations. So feature store is about related to the problem that I talked about, which means that we have to serve recommendations in 700 milliseconds in real time. How do we do it? So we are building some engineering infrastructure in order to enable these sorts of recommendation models. We are optimizing recommendations we are working on optimizing recommendations for multiple objectives for users, suppliers, and platforms. So for different real estates, we are already doing it, but we are trying to figure out how to do it in the right manner, how to improve upon the approaches that we have today. We are also working on different bandit based approaches for recommendations. So it's basically the topic of multi-arm bandits. You can maybe go and check about it. We are also working on how to use deep learning based NLP methods for semantic search. So I gave an example of semantic search where let's say you are searching for kitchen utilities, but kitchen utility is not a product, right? It means something for the user which is different from the term that is used to do the search. So what could it mean? It's sort of a semantic search problem. We are also working on different kind of computer vision techniques in order to extract attributes from products for cataloging, etc. So imagine like we have billions of products, right? And it's not possible to manually correctly put attributes for all of them. It's going to be a Herculean task. So you want to automate that or assist the people who are going to do that with some sort of computer vision techniques and do it automatically, which can be consumed. And then we are also working on personalization of notification volume optimization. So which means like I send you personalized notifications based on what you might be interested in, but at the same time I don't want to send too many of the notifications so that you lose interest. So we are also trying to work on these problems, and there are like a lot more. I could not really list all of them or talk through all of them here, but it will give you a fair sense of the challenges and the challenging problem that we are working on. And hopefully like this inspires you, catches your attention, and you find it really relevant for your interest as well. And if you want to sort of build for Bharat, build for tier 2, tier 3 cities, small towns and villages, if you want to contribute in that space and help us democratize internet commerce and enable 100 million small businesses, you should visit meesho.io and find out like if there are something interesting for you there in terms of jobs, in terms of other contributions that you can make. Yeah, so I highly urge you to sort of check this out.
Okay, meanwhile, if any one of you has any doubts, please raise your hand and I can give you the access to unmute yourself. And
Hi, Abhay. Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Abhay, it's me, Roshan Peter. I have this doubt. So
Sure.
I have a small data set of songs from which the user will be able to choose a song, and based on that choice, recommendations will be given. So we are currently using the content-based filtering for this process. And initially we used a simple recommendation system that did not use any machine learning. So how will you compare the two models? We are planning to take user feedback and use normalized discounted cumulative gain for this comparison purpose. So is there a better way to do it?
Yeah, I think you are already on a good start. So if you have already built some system to do recommendation, what you do have is a baseline, right? You have a baseline performance. What you want to do now is try out some more sophisticated method, and your method should be able to beat this baseline, right? So let's say your method was currently just based on keyword search. So you had the song and then attributes as features, and someone is looking for a particular attribute. If that's the way you're recommending, that gives you sort of a performance of NDCG, etc. Right? Now, when you go to a sophisticated machine learning model, and if it's not able to beat the performance of this model, there is no point making it, right? It has to make sense. So your baseline is already there. So you are already on good path. On machine learning now, you have to think of different ways of figuring out how to encode all of these audio songs, right? Some of the features would be already available to you as metadata, for example, artist, genre, popularity of the song, etc. But now, can you also extract some features from the audio itself, like the mood of the song, the type of song, whether it has beats or not, etc. Right? So you have to look into sort of audio processing techniques there in order to figure out what kind of features can be extracted, and then yeah, you've already planned to build a machine learning model, so you're just on the right path. All you have to do is spend a lot more time on capturing audio related information, because two songs. So I like to listen to blues of, let's say, Pink Floyd, right? Now there could be other bands which are more recent who produce that kind of song, but it won't be captured by the metadata alone, because genre could mean a lot of different things. Within genre there are very huge diversity of songs, so you have to get into the audio level features there.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I think this was the last set of questions. So okay, so I would like to thank you for the very detailed and intricate, for giving us the intricate details of how personalized recommendations are done to the billion users. And thanks a lot for the well-paced lecture and well-timed lecture. Thank you for answering all our questions. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for taking time over the weekend to participate in this talk. Feel free to connect me over LinkedIn if you have more questions, or if you want to find out how you can contribute. If you are interested in joining Meesho, etc., you can see my LinkedIn username at the bottom. You can also find me online. So have a nice day. Hope you are enjoying the sessions as a part of this workshop. Thank you.